Hello, everyone. This is Hannah Lakian, host of the WMA podcast. We have an amazing episode planned where we talked with Dalal Solomon. Dalal is CEO and founding partner of Salomon and Ludwin, an investment and financial advisory firm based in Richmond, Virginia. Dalal received her degree from Michigan State and has been in the financial services industry since 1984. In today's conversation, we discussed Dalal's journey of becoming a financial advisor and starting her own firm, successful characteristics of an advisor, a typical day in the life of a financial planner, how to effectively communicate with clients, general advice, and specifically advice for women entering the field, and so much more. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome, Dalal.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and start right off. If you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey to kind of get where you are now and your career in financial planning and wealth management.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me, that's for sure. I was never the kind of person that knew from an early age what I wanted to do. So it was kind of a hit or miss, even studying at Michigan State. I kind of went from major to major, really didn't have a strong sense of what would be the best fit for me. But I did know that I had a good business head and I was a good problem solver. And in 1982, I joined a financial planning firm in Washington, D.C. And they were literally, I think, looking for women at that time because I think I was the only woman they've ever trained. So I had to take a lot of personality tests and other kinds of tests. And I ended up scoring super high. They hired me, and that was like the beginning of this journey to really find my passion in this industry. So it was an interesting path. I've never been a money motivated person. So I remember graduating from Michigan State and thinking, I graduated in 77, thinking if I could make $12,000 a year and have my own apartment, I would be like set for life. So I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be where I am today, for sure.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. Well, you mentioned some, characteristics and problem solving and taking this personality test. What do you think are some traits or some characteristics of a successful advisor?
I think it's not what most people think it is. When I talk to people about being a financial advisor, the first thing they say is, I'm not very good at math. And it's like, oh my God, who's good at math? That's not even in the realm of what's important to be a successful financial advisor. I think what you have to understand about being a financial advisor is, for all intents and purposes, you're an entrepreneur. You are running your own business, and you have to get your own clients. You have to build trust with those clients. Your reputation, for sure, becomes probably the most important thing. But so really organizational skills are important. You've got to be self-motivated. You do have to be a problem solver and a little bit of a therapist, because the entire crux of what you are as a financial advisor has to do with the relationship between you and your client. So your ability to, some people think they have to know everything about everything, the economy, the markets, this, that. You actually just have to be a really good listener and really be able to connect with people in a really genuine way, because you're asking people to entrust you with their life savings. And if they don't think you're listening or understand them or are a genuine, caring person on their behalf, it just doesn't go anywhere. So those are all really, those soft skills to me are things you can't teach people. You can teach people about the markets. You can teach people how to do a financial plan. You can learn all the jargon, but which is why I think the financial advisory business is really a great business for women, because I think we're really good listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you can definitely tell how much the soft skills come into play, kind of sometimes more than those technical skills. So I think that's a really good point. And
Yep.
you mentioned, being this entrepreneur on the entrepreneurial mindset. So can you tell us a little bit more about, being a founding partner of your own firm and a little bit about, Salomon and Ludwin?
Yeah, I'd love to. I started off in with a firm called Wheat First Securities, which was one of the biggest regional brokerage firms here in the southeast. They were bought out by Wachovia, which was eventually bought out by Wells Fargo Advisors. So I had stayed with that firm from 1984 until 2018. So it was a very long-term relationship. So even when you're an advisor within a firm like a Wells Fargo Advisors, a Merrill Lynch, any of these companies, even though you're an employee of those firms, you are running your own business within the realm of that environment. And when I say running your own business, nobody's telling you what to do during the day. No one is really helping you get clients. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the research, you're doing everything. So it truly is running your own business. So in 2018, I moved away from Wells Fargo Advisors and became an RIA, an independent RIA. Today we manage about almost $1.5 billion in client assets. We are a Barron's top advisory practice and a Hall of Fame practice, which means you've been on the Barron's list for 10 consecutive years or more. We do not work with institutions. We work with families. We have a basis around financial planning, and I've been doing financial planning since 1984. At the time, my firm didn't even have financial planning software. I had to go out and buy my own. I did it all on my own, and really felt like if you can't understand what the client needs to do with the money, it's hard to make decisions about what to do with it. So the planning process really gives you a roadmap for looking at all kinds of things, from how much they should have in stocks versus not stocks, to what they need from their investments from a cash flow standpoint, how much risk they should take, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So going off of that, what were some of the challenges that you faced along, this path to, starting your own, RIA and where you're at now?
Yeah, it's really, it's still a very male dominated industry for sure. So that was probably one of the biggest things I had to deal with, especially back in the early to mid 80s. So there was a lot of stereotype. There was a lot of, what I want to say, that the guys in my branch, for example, were given a lot more opportunity than I was given. But I really kind of went my own way from the very beginning. I didn't want to cold call people because I was uncomfortable. I really didn't even want to talk on the phone because I'm not a phone person. I don't like really talking to strangers. So I just devised my own very unique path. I did a lot of workshops and seminars. I went into businesses to introduce myself personally and talk about my background and what I could do. And I think in the beginning, I had such a slow start. I was almost fired. Like my first 5 years, it was like I was not meeting any of my quotas. I was not opening a lot of new accounts like the guys were. And I had to really, really fight with my manager to say, look, I'm not trying to just make transactions here. I'm trying to form relationships with people. And it takes time, and you just need to give me more time. And right after my 5th year, it just, all this work that I had done to build all this trust in these relationships just kind of blossomed. And within 2 or 3 years after that, I was the top advisor in my branch. And it was I got a lot of pushback from the guys. They couldn't understand, like, how did this happen? And this doesn't seem right, but it was a great thing for me to kind of realize that I was going to do it the way that I thought was best for me and my clients and my future, and fight for it, and then have it actually come to fruition and enjoy the success of that. So yeah, it was it's interesting how reputation can carry you such a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know obviously, this industry is very male dominated. What were some of those ways that you were able to, kind of create that confidence and, that reputation that you just talked about? So, you earned that, trust between them and.
Yeah, I think it was hard because when I started, I was still in my late 20s, and I was a woman in a very male dominated industry, working with older people, which is usually the people that have more of the money. And I have a name like Dalal Solomon, and I was living in the South. It was a new city for me. I didn't know anybody. I had no networks, no contacts. So, I mean, I had a lot of things going against me, but I think what I did that changed a lot of things and helped me develop my own confidence is I studied a lot, not really about the markets and things like that, but I studied things like taxes and estate planning and retirement plans and things that really everybody else was cold calling about some sexy stock or some investment that sounded really cool. And I was out talking about financial planning and how to save more effectively and efficiently by having retirement plans and how to set them up, and talking about what happens at the end of life with estate planning. And, it's all these things that really weren't performance or stock market oriented that I could talk about, and I could talk about it pretty confidently, even with an attorney or a CPA. And so my young age at the time, I think that really set me apart. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, because, people sense whether you're confident or not. If you're passionate and confident and have strong convictions, and when clients trust you with their money, they want someone that has all those things. So you don't have to be 60 years old with gray hair to learn how to be that. You just have to study enough to really understand the intricacies of some of these things, and then be able to convey that. And I can't really stress enough how important being passionate and having conviction is. About the dog. Because that's, if you're talking to clients and you can't express that conviction and passion, it's very hard for them to get on board.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really great, inspiring to hear. I want to talk a little bit more, and I know this is kind of a typical question, but do you mind describing kind of what your day looks like as a financial advisor and kind of what you go through or what your team goes through?
Yeah, we spend, so a good part of our day is spent talking to clients. And of course, with COVID, we were really well known in our city, in Richmond, Virginia, for seeing people in person. And that really came out of my inability to speak on the phone. I always felt like if I'm talking on the phone with somebody, I don't even know if they're listening to me. I can't see their body language. And it was always so important for me that people understood what they were getting into before they got into it. I wanted to really make sure that there was full disclosure and transparency and understanding. So I developed my practice for these constant face-to-face meetings. And when I first started, it was like a dentist's office. I was seeing, 6 to 8 people a day, all day long. And so that was really the way that I had started. But now there's 11 of us. We have 5 advisors, and everyone else is support staff. And most of the days are spent either doing what we call progress reviews, where we're either doing a Zoom call or an in-person meeting to literally go over everything about a client's account, from their financial plan to their cash flow, to taxes, estate planning, all these things that we do. A good part of the day is either doing that or preparing for that. Preparing the financial plan is a big part of it, and updating. We have a profiling system for all our clients that profiles. We've developed our own software that allows us to input a lot of things about our clients, from things like, do they have long-term care insurance? Do they have life insurance? Do they have tax loss carry forwards? I mean, just a myriad of things that we can log into and will give us a really, really clear picture of each client.
Definitely. Yeah. So for you and your team, what would you say is your view or your approach on investing and planning and helping those clients?
Yeah, our view is really unique, because if you look at our website, nowhere on our website do we talk about investments or performance. So our view about investing is that there is no money manager out there that can consistently beat the market. If there was, that's what we would all be buying, but there isn't. So we invest pretty exclusively in our portfolios, index funds, ETFs, very low cost, very tax efficient, very transparent. And we invest in the broad markets, be it the S&P 500, international, small cap, mid cap. So, we believe in diversification and the allocation, but we do not try to predict the markets, and we do not try to outperform the markets, because again, we haven't found anybody that can do that consistently. So our biggest thing about investing is everybody knows you should buy lower and sell higher. That's just like, it's such a simple thing to say. Well, of course you buy lower, sell higher, but you never know where lower is or where higher is. So it's not that easy to do. So we decided in 2008 or so, when the markets were just plummeting, kind of the worst recession in history probably, we fired all our money managers, and we created our own portfolio strategy called Trigger Point, which is a buy lower, sell higher strategy. And it's all based on algorithms. We have a patent on it, and we use indexed ETFs to as the investment vehicle. But what it does is, as markets go up, we lock in a little bit of the profits along the way up. And we set those profits aside for one of two things: to buy back into that same market when it eventually falls, or to use as cash flow for clients that are retired and need to have income. So the reason that how this came into effect really was that when the markets were plummeting, it's very hard to call a client and say, oh my God, the markets are down 50%. Send me some more money. This is a great time to buy. No one will do that. Everyone's doing the exact opposite. So in Trigger Point, excuse me, what we built is a way for us to lock in gains as markets were rising and set them aside so that we don't have to call clients when the markets fall. The money's there, and we're able to buy in at lower and lower prices along the way. So it was a really interesting shift in client psychology. All of a sudden, when markets are falling, instead of getting calls in the office, like of people panicking, people started calling us up excited. Are we buying? Are we buying? And when we were able to say, yes, you are buying. And again, because these are discretionary accounts, which means we have discretion to manage them, we don't have to call the client and say we're going to buy, because we know the psychology of the market is when markets are falling, people tend to panic and sell. And when markets are rising, people tend to get greedy and buy. You can look at that historically in mutual fund inflows and outflows, and it proves the fact that the biggest purchases are done at the top of the market, and the biggest sales are done at the bottom of the market. So what our philosophy of investing is to do the opposite, to have it be based on logic and this buy lower, sell higher strategy.
I really like that buy lower, sell higher, and the Trigger Point tool. It seems so fascinating. So nice, interesting hearing kind of how you look at the psychology of the market and clients and everything. But brings me to a question, how do you, what are some of those strategies that you use to communicate with clients and ensure that you're helping them, gain a stable financial future? Or how do you put yourself in the shoes of clients to make sure that, they achieve their financial goals?
That's a great question. And you literally do have to put yourself in the shoes of clients. I mean, I remember when I first started in my 20s, I literally had to envision myself as a 60 or 70 or 80-year-old person. And I went through exercises internally, like how would I feel like if I had this and needed to do that? And I really made an effort to put myself in people's shoes, because that's really, really important. It's, I think, and I see it now with young advisors, tend to be so much more aggressive in how they manage clients' money. And for me, it makes me feel like maybe they don't get that, when you stop earning a paycheck and what you have is what you have, and it's got to last you the rest of your life. It isn't just about making money. It becomes equally about not losing money, because once you lose it, there's no earning it back. So it is an important mindset. And I think what I always try to do with clients, one is not to use jargon to try to impress them that I know these words or this and that. And I ask a lot, is this making sense to you? Does this feel logical to you? Does this feel good to you? And I also tell clients, don't ever make a decision if your gut is telling you something's not right, whether it's with me, with another advisor, or anything, because I always want my clients, even the ones that say, I don't understand this stuff, this is not my thing, I'll never get this. So I'm just going to trust you. That really upsets me. So I'll say you should trust me because I'm a pretty trustworthy person, but you need to trust yourself. You don't need to know how to make the watch, but you need to know how to tell time. And I'm going to teach you how to tell time. And if I can't articulate concepts and ideas and strategies to you in a way that you understand, then that's my failure. And I will keep trying until you do. But I need for them, and they understand this very clearly, none of this is rocket science. It's actually all pretty simple. Mm-hmm. It can be intimidating because people do use words and acronyms and things that, and clients sometimes are afraid to say they don't understand. So it's really on our shoulders to avoid doing that kind of thing. I will say, being a female in this business, I found that working with older men was easier for them than for them to work with a guy, because I think there's some competitiveness there, and maybe them not feeling like they can say they don't understand things. Where I felt like with me, when I was explaining things, they asked a lot of questions. They were able to say they didn't understand or ask for more information. So, yeah, I think that was a big benefit, I think, for a lot of people. And I will also say, being a woman, sadly, probably more so in the past than maybe now, in a husband-wife stereotypical relationship, the stereotype was that the husband was the one that made all the financial decisions. But what I found was that and a lot of especially older women were fine with that. I wasn't fine with it. And I always, when we have meetings, I always said it was kind of a prerequisite that the spouse came. Mm-hmm. And part of that is women outlive men. And at some point, she's going to have a comfort level with the strategies and the advisors and that kind of thing. But what I did find is a lot of older men wanted to work with a woman because they felt their spouse would be more comfortable with a woman. And they were getting to that age where they were recognizing that at some point they're not going to be there. And they were the receptacle for all this information and all these decisions. And they needed to find someone they trusted that they could hand it over to and work with a spouse. And I think a lot of times that comfort level went up dramatically in working with a female advisor.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I wanted to ask a question as well, is, what do you think are, some things that people should know about financial advising or this firm or, kind of this industry, that's not talked about enough?
It is a difficult industry to not to get into, but to stay in. I don't think people realize how much on your own you truly are. And that's why I think maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, especially, teams have become much more prevalent. To start this in this industry by yourself, especially as a younger person, is really, really hard. My training class in 1984 had 29 men and me. And 5 years later, I think there was only 4 of us left. 10 years later, there were 2 of us left. So it is a really, really hard business. I think what has happened in the last decade or so, this creation of teams, because that used to never be a thing, is the ability for a young person to join a team, especially a team with maybe some older advisors that want to start to transition out, is an amazing way to get into this industry without all the challenges and pressures of finding clients as a young person and developing that trust and still trying to pay your bills and do that.
For sure. I'd love to kind of end our conversation with one last question. And I want to, what advice do you have for, people considering a career in financial advising or people who are already in the industry? Or what advice, maybe more specifically, do you have for women in the industry or women who are hoping to enter into the industry?
Yeah, I think the couple things I would say. One is, for women, it's an amazing industry because there's no glass ceiling. And if you're motivated and have a passion for establishing really meaningful relationships with people, I think you can excel. And I think certainly nowadays, I think being a CFP is probably a great way, especially for male or female, for a young person to just come in with some credentials and some foundation of knowledge, and that can give them some confidence, is a really, really big thing. And then I think the other thing really is that understanding that it is a people business. It is not a market business. I think what's happening in the industry generally is that investments are pretty much a commodity. There's so much out there, and with indexing and all these things, that what an advisor really brings to the table is the ability to create a really pertinent and meaningful financial plan, updating that plan constantly, because people's lives freaking change seems like every month sometimes. And the plan is a living, breathing document. And then to understand how to create cash flow from the investments is a really big deal, especially for retired clients. They want to know, once they stop getting that paycheck, where's their money going to come from? And if you can articulate that in a logical way, that's huge. And then understanding things like taxes and estate planning are also, these are not commodities. Those are things that, those are the pillars that people should be standing on. And, the investments are pretty straightforward for the most part. So I think that would be the biggest thing. I also think that's why teachers make really good financial advisors. So for all the teachers out there that are thinking they want to switch professions, this would be a good one.
Yes, for sure. That was amazing advice. Definitely seeing that it's a people-facing role and using these, skills. So thank you so much for the advice. And I know our listeners are really going to appreciate it. But thank you so much again, Dalal.
You're so welcome. Yeah.
I feel lucky to have the opportunity to have talked with you and heard from you. So thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a great holiday if I don't see you before.
Yes, absolutely. You as well. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
If you like what you just heard, please like, comment, and share. This is Lance Mullen, producer of the MSU WMA podcast. MSUWMA, or Michigan State University Wealth Management Association, is a student organization part of the Eli Broad College of Business, located in East Lansing, Michigan. Our mission is to inspire and educate the next generation of financial planners. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed, please check out our channel on all platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and check out our social media at MSUWMA and msuwma.com.